Next presentation is on public improvement districts. Cities and counties often need to make certain improvements to their infrastructure to cause economic growth within a particular area. New businesses and residents might not choose to locate where there's not good streets, substandard utility services, or other public facilities or inferior services. It's also difficult for existing businesses to prosper in areas that have poor public infrastructure. Texas law provides a number of ways to be able to fund and finance needed public improvements, including the use of special assessments. Public improvement districts offer cities and counties a way for undertaking these projects without burdening the full city or the full county for the cost of the improvements. Here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about, what is a public improvement district, the types of PIDs. There's really three types, but most people only think of two when you talk about them. What's considered a PID? The authorized improvements. We're going to briefly touch on these. We've got a lot of graphics in here, so it'll be pretty easy to grasp it. Authorized services and how to create, dissolve, and some examples of public improvement districts and kind of how they work. So what's a public improvement district? This is found in Chapter 372 of the Local Government Code, this is special purpose district. If you hear the controller's office talking about its public service, it's special purpose districts. We've got a database of these in addition to a lot of other types of special purpose districts. It's one of those tens of thousands of special districts that are authorized in the state. And the purpose of this one is to fund additional services or improvements within a defined geographical area. So in other words, this is going to be part of a city or part of a county, funded by special assessments. But I can tell you that most people think it looks, smells, and tastes like a property tax when you get a bill from the tax assessor collector who is contracted to collect the public improvement district assessments, which are usually based upon the value of the property. So it will smell and taste like it, but you'll understand as we move through the process why they have to make a distinction.
Hey, Russell?
Yes.
There's a couple of people in the chat who can't see the presentation. Can you maybe unshare and reshare your screen just to make sure people can see it?
Are you seeing it now?
We see it on ours. If my thought is if we see it on ours, they may need to reset their settings or reboot their presentations.
Maybe they can leave and rejoin, and I can readmit them.
Okay.
Go ahead, Russ.
Okay, so we'll continue on. Let's see. We'll talk about the way you create a PID and whether or not to create a PID is fully within the discretion of the city council or the county commissioner's court. So you can go through all of the process and everything, and then the commissioner's court or the city council will say, nope, not going to do it. So just keep in mind that you've got to convince the city council or the commissioner's court to move forward. Historically, there have been two types of PIDs, what's called the operating and maintenance PID and then the capital improvement PID. Often PIDs will have features of both operating and maintenance, and I'll give you some examples of the types of PIDs. A third type is known as a tourism PID, and it was authorized for cities in Texas in 2019. So far, only Dallas has adopted one of these. This PID collects assessments from hotels that can be used for advertising, promotion, and business recruitment, and daily directed related to hotels. This type of PID allows for inclusion of non-contiguous areas. So hotels in several different areas of the county are eligible, or of the city are eligible for the eligible for inclusion, and even if they're not, they're not even on adjacent property. So like you'll find the northwest part of Dallas and the downtown Dallas is all in this special PID for hotels. The Dallas PID has more than 120 participating hotels. It seems like we're still having people, if you could put your hands up if you are not seeing the presentation, so we can ensure that it's not something general. Hands up, I see only 3 hands that are up. Actually now, yeah, 3. 4 hands, 5 hands, 6 hands. I'm not sure what the commonality might be. So what I will do is try to move back and do this using a different method. Oh, so a lot of people are seeing it. Well, I'm going to push forward, and we're going to provide you all copies of the presentation, because to reset would probably take longer than would be beneficial to us. So all this being said, there are 3 types of PIDs, but the most common one you're going to find is the PIDs that are either for service or for doing capital work. So why you want to consider a PID? A PID provides public infrastructure without burdening existing taxpayers with the cost. What this means is the people that are locating in one area of the city, not the entire city, are going to bear the cost of the assessment, because they're going to be the ones that are the primary beneficiaries of the PID. PIDs can accelerate the goals of a comprehensive plan. Say you intend to have sidewalks throughout the city in every neighborhood and every business area of the city. Well, in this PID, you can require that as a part of the PID requirements. And as a result, you're starting your way on being able to have meeting the comprehensive plan that you have for 20 or 30 years from now, to have the entire city have those same benefits. For cities, the PIDs might be used an incentive to encourage annexation. So in other words, you've got an area of right at the adjacent to the city, and in order to get them to accept annexation, you'll create the PID that will give them the ability to offload some of the costs to the buyers or the future owners of the property in the form of the assessments, rather than having to pay for it all up front. PIDs also provide for enhanced development standards, and amenities that can be over and above the current development regulations. This would be requiring like dog parks, some parkland, maybe fountains, a fishing pond, things that are not required in the city elsewhere, but to make this a place that's going to be a target for people that really want to have a structured environment and are willing to pay for the assessments to do so. And PIDs also provide an extra layer of enhanced services. For example, trash pickup is something that most cities offer as an extra service. But some of the things they don't offer is, the special lighting, the services like picking the little baggies for the dogs when you're following your dog around, taking them for a walk, for a better description. All of the little extra things, some cleaning and things of that nature that are going to be paid for by the property owners that are benefiting from the cost. Benefited from the PID. So why do developers like it? Well, kind of what you expect. You're basically able to offload some of the costs of the development. So you'll put in all the infrastructure, you'll put in all of the water, the sewer, the roads, and then the costs are going to be paid over time by the people that buy the lots in the neighborhood, or by lease the space in the commercial area. Residents love them because you get that park feel to your neighborhood. You've got walking trails, you've got the dog walk areas, the water feature, lakes and fountains and things of that nature. And of course, even though it's not a property tax, the PID assessments are treated by federal taxes as being deductible. So, what authorized improvements and services can you do? Well, this is not quite comprehensive, but it's close. It meets almost everything in the statute. We've already mentioned things like lights and fountains and extra landscaping. but you can acquire and install art pieces. We call a lot of this stuff like placemaking. So, that little corner is a place where, a busker might be sitting there with his guitar, things like that are, little small amphitheaters, things of that nature. Can build libraries, parking facilities, help make it easier for mass transit to serve the area, establish an improvement of parks, various other things that are going to cause for the improvements of the area. And also you can use it for rehabilitation and expansion of affordable housing. Well, special supplemental services for improvement and promotion of the district, including related advertising and promotion, health and sanitation. This is the cleanup. If you look at San Antonio, when we get to there, you're going to see they use it to basically for the same purposes that Austin does after a night on 6th Street. They use it to hose the area down, maybe do what is called to try to keep it PG. We'll call it bird abatement. Things of that nature. But you can also use it for business recruitment, development, recreation, cultural enhancement. And then, of course, you can pay any expenses that are incurred in the establishment or administrating of the district, including paying for a manager or a managing company or a contract to do certain things and provide certain services. In this case, one of the things they mention is mass transit. So creating it starts with a petition. The governing body of the group, governing body or a group of affected property owners. Usually, in case you haven't seen this type of thing before, quite often it's a single piece of land that has a single owner. And what will happen is that one owner will come forward and say it would provide a petition saying we would like to have this PID created. Now, the city is going to be the benefit of, long-term development and everything, so they're willing to do it. But often it's also multiple property owners that are going to call for the defined area, what it is, and what they're planning on doing with it. Then you have to have a draft improvement plan. So you're going to say, what is going to be in this area, and you'll appoint an advisory board to develop and recommend the improvements. Sometimes it includes citizens, but often it includes city council members or designated people by the city working with the developer, whether it's the developer's own staff or people that he or she provides on their behalf to come up with the improvement plan. These are things like, what is it going to go here? This is going to be, we need water and sewer, we need streets, we need parks and the like. And then they provide, after this is done, the council takes it on and looks at it, and they prepare a feasibility report. Sometimes the math doesn't work, and so the city will come back and say, we don't believe that you're providing enough money, or that the amount of assessments that you're going to have is going to cover it, or maybe you're basically too pie in the sky with the amount of money that you're going to need. We need to scale it back a little bit. But that's what the feasibilities report is. It basically takes the draft improvement plan and determines whether or not it's feasible. Then afterwards, you have to have a public hearing like Russell, you do in most. Yes.
We have a question here from Brianna Brown. When trying to create a PID in an already developed area, how are non-tax paying entities handled relating to the petition?
Relating to the petition. I've never had that question come up before. I know you can exclude them from the assessments, but I don't know that you can exclude them from the petition. But when it comes down to it, if they are surrounded by PID, I'm not sure that they would be able to prevent themselves from being in it. I hate to punt on the question, but I think we probably need to punt that to having you send us an email and we get a little bit more research on it. But typically speaking, at least on the assessment side, they can be excluded, but I don't know that you can exclude them from the petition. Okay, that's the only question. So creating a PID, you hold a public hearing like you do with almost every major issue that a city or county takes up. And this is on the advisability of the improvements. Remember, a hearing is exactly that. The city council is not required to talk. This will give the public just to basically tell everything they want. Quite often you have the developer's representative here and they give a big presentation, and then people step forward and they give their thoughts on it before the city council decides to approve it. Sometimes they go back and after the hearing and they do additional adjustments to it. But after the public hearing is held and after they make any adjustments that might result from it, then the governing body of the city has to adopt a resolution by a majority vote authorizing the creation of the PID. And then there's a cooling off period for about 20 days. This usually, to be frank with you, usually what it is, it's to wait and see if there's a lawsuit. Sometimes lawsuits come about as a result of PIDs, and this gives the 20 days for if anybody really has something viable that's going to stop this project, then they would come forward in this 20 days. Thereafter, the PID would be created, and then it would take a judge to stop it with a restraining order, which is much harder to get after the project's already been authorized and moving forward. So 20 days after the authorization of the PID has taken effect, the city and the county can begin construction on the improvements. In reality, most of these improvements are actually constructed by the developer or someone the developer hires, and it's overseen by the city to make sure that everything is going according to what the requirements were. But realistically, these quite often are developer driven. So creating the PID, assessment plan, 5-year ongoing service plan. I think Frank mentions this with one of his programs. I think it's with TERS. But basically, the 5-year ongoing service plan and assessment plan has to be developed. This is going to be what's going to happen and how are you going to pay for it. You need to make sure that the money's coming in, whether it's borrowed money or the assessments are going to be able to cover this on the ongoing basis. And these can be adjusted from time to time, but you have to go back and start this portion of the process over again each time you make substantial changes to it, including holding another public hearing. Assessment roles prepared. The assessment role is who is going to be and what manner in which you're going to assess. So for example, we mentioned that there could be certain exempt properties. You also could maybe reduce or exempt certain properties that aren't the target of this. So say you've got an area with existing structures on it, and you have commercial property, and then you have residential property. It's possible that you might want to exclude or somehow design your assessment so that residential areas are not taxed in the same way that are not assessed in the same way that businesses are. But in any case, you pair the assessment role, so who's going to be on it, and then the special assessments levied in the same manner in which property taxes are, and usually you contract with the same entity that the city uses to collect its property taxes. Errors and omissions. This is for the lawyers in the audience only. The lawyers will know that almost every contract or every special thing that a local government does, you can always go back and fix it, but quite often you have to go back and relitigate the public hearing before you can go ahead and assess the the assessment. Dissolving it. I get calls on this once every 2 or 3 months, whether it be PIDs or TERS or other special districts. And almost in every case, you cannot dissolve a PID until all of the costs are paid. So public improvement district can be dissolved if a petition is brought forward. It contains the signatures of at least the same number of property owners required to create the PID. Public notice and a public hearing are held, and the district is dissolved, but it stays in place until all of the debt is paid off. So what this means is you can work yourself all the way through the process and have the district dissolved, but it might take 10 years to pay off the debt. So realistically, don't think you're going to stop a PID unless it's a service PID very quickly after after a dissolution, particularly if it's 2 or 3 years into a plan for 15 or 20 years worth of work. But once you lay streets and put in pipes and things like that, you've got a huge amount of debt to pay off, and it will take years and years. There's a municipal utility district that's not too far from where I live that the city will not take it over because of the substantial debt that MUD has. So keep in mind the dissolution is on paper, it's possible, but in reality, it probably won't happen in your lifetime if it's got a lot of debt. So let's talk about what these are. I like the pretty pictures, and this part of the session goes pretty quickly. When we talked earlier about the types of things you can do, assessments paid by properties in this Dallas Downtown Improvement District, they're used for security, maintenance, activation of public spaces, or placemaking projects, special events, and marketing and other related services. Downtown Fort Worth, they use this for beautification and cleanup. You see they put in new sod in front of this redeveloped, it was formerly a school. You can do all kinds of things with it. The ambassador program, this is where you roll out the red carpet for people that are visiting from, the Mexican delegation is coming through, and they need special security, or they need, special care. Marketing and communications, transportation planning, all this occur in the downtown PID number 14. San Antonio El Centro, a lot of people in this audience have been there. This is used basically for, as I mentioned earlier with downtown 6th Street, the hose down and the spoofing up that occurs after events. But they also do some types of hardscaping. You'll notice that they put bike racks and put in sidewalks. But also do the service PID things like the power washing and maintenance and ambassador services. This is a kind of a hybrid. Here's an example of a residential PID. The city here was aiming to attract dense urban retail and restaurants. In summary, they were basically trying to make a walkable community that would allow you to walk to a train and get to downtown Austin without getting into your car. So Capital Metro built the Red Line and formed a new downtown tourism district for Leander. This was also paired with a tax increment and reinvestment zone known as a TERS. There were certain things that the developer had to do in order to make this all happen, and the city would kick in money. So the Oak Creek PID issued bonds providing for, let me repeat this. City of Leander issued bonds for 30-year bonds for $5.2 million, but it required the Oak Creek PID to provide $3.9 million up front. So what this did was put the local government in a better place, and that if you have been around through the booms and busts in Texas in the past, you find that a lot of subdivisions were started and never finished. So they wanted to make sure that this company was in it for a penny and in for a pound. This is similar to what we were talking about earlier. This is providing public improvements, scenic bridges, fountains, ponds, trails, and make this a really nice place to live. And ultimately, this would be a residential subdivision. More simple, this is Lubbock North Point PID. You'll notice that what they've done is the PID includes a large number of residential lots, and then it has this other large area of land. And if you're unfamiliar with how developments work, there's always an impervious cover offset. And so this is where does the water go off the rooftops? And what it does is in this area, the drainage takes everything down to the park that's on the other side of the subdivision, and has a nice water feature there. So, if you've ever been out to the Panhandle, everything is flat and water kind of sits around in puddles after it falls, because it takes a long time for it to dissipate. And what they have here is the offset is the big recreational area. It's not something real fancy. You'll notice behind, they apparently don't even water it. But this provides for, the walking your dog, provides for the cost of mowing, and then those little baggies that are there for picking up after your dogs when you take them walking. Another one very similar, but it's a little bit more thought apparently went into it, where the residential area is kind of merged in with the recreational area, but the same types of services are provided: trash receptacles, pet waste stations, and enhanced lighting.